Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our November 19th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting. As is our tradition, we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join as you are able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. My name is Lisa Cholet, and I'm the current chair of the Planning Commission. I'm joined by my colleagues who will each go around, introduce themselves, give their time on the board, and where they're from. And for me, I've been here for 2 years, and I live in the town of Wellington. I will start with Commissioner Eggleston to my right.
Adam Eggleston. I've been on the Planning Commission for a year and a half and on Southeast Fort Collins.
Good evening. I'm John Weiss. I've been on the commission for a year and a half, and I live in Timnath.
Hello, I'm Shelby King. I have been on the commission for 2.5 years, and I live in LaPorte.
Good evening. I'm Patrick Rowe. I've been on the commission for 4 years, and I live in Northwest Fort Collins.
Good evening. I'm Connor Duffy. I've been on the commission for 3 years, and I live in the Timnath area.
Do we have any board members online?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. And now I will turn it over to our planning manager, Ms. Axmaker, for introductions and to share some hearing procedures for this evening.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm Jenny Axmaker. I am the planning manager. I'm joined here at the dais by Christine Luckison from our county attorney's office. We have senior planner Michael Whitley. We have Ryan Oswandel from our planning administrative support, and then across the way we have Connor Sheldon from our engineering department. We have principal planner Matt Lafferty. We have environmental planner Scott Benton, principal planner Cassidy Fior, and then we have Leah Schneider from the health department joining us. With that, I would respectfully request that all members of the audience silence their electronic devices. Please help yourself to a copy of the agenda and hearing procedure instructions. They're located right on the wall right there. And if you're joining us online, you can find them at larimer.gov/BOCC/commissioners-meetings. The hearing procedures for tonight, for each discussion item, we will begin with a presentation from county staff, followed by a presentation from the applicant, with time for any clarifying questions from the commissioners. There will then be an opportunity for any members of public to address the commission with their comments on the matter. Both the applicant and county staff will have an opportunity to respond to any questions or concerns raised during public testimony during the rebuttal period, and the commission will then ask any remaining questions of the applicant or staff before entering into deliberations and working towards a decision on the matter. During public comment, please wait to speak until you're recognized by the chair. Please maintain civility, refraining from audience applause, comments, or disruptions, whether positive or negative. Please make all comments to the commissioners from the podium. We do have a portable microphone available if needed. Please state your name at the beginning of your comments and provide the spelling of your name if it's unique. Please speak directly into the microphone so that participants joining us on Zoom may hear. For those joining on Zoom, attendees will be muted until they're recognized by the chair. If an online attendee wishes to speak or to request that a consent item be removed, please use the raise your hand function on the Zoom control bar or *9 on your phone. Upon request, we do have assisted listening devices available for the hearing impaired. And tonight we have, how many consent items? 3, and then we have 1 discussion item. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'll go through some additional information, including what is on our agenda today. For today, we will have the approval of our minutes and then items on consent. Our consent agenda items are, the first one is legislative code amendments, file number 25-code 0288. The second item is Airport Zoning Land Use Code Amendment, file number 25-code 0290. And The third item is the Owl Ridge Farm subdivision, file number 23-land 4361. And then after that, we have a discussion item, which is the WH Property Holdings LLC special review, file number 24-zone 3688. And with that, we will start with approval of our meeting minutes from October 15th.
I move to approve the meeting minutes from October 15th, 2025.
Second.
Second. I don't think you had your
Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Weiss,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Eggleston,
Yes.
Duffy,
Yes.
Cholet.
Yes. Do we have any amendments to our agenda tonight?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to go through a few more things to keep in mind before we move to our consent agenda. Typically, items on the consent agenda are considered routine in nature, and as far as we know, there is no perceived or significant controversy. Items on the consent agenda will not have a staff presentation, the applicant will not get to speak, and there will be no opportunity for public comment unless the item is pulled from the consent agenda. Commissioners are able to pull an item from the consent agenda as well as you, the public. If that occurs, then there will be a presentation, public comment, and all the rest. For items on the discussion agenda, there will be a presentation from staff. There's an opportunity for the applicant to make their case, and then there's an opportunity for public comment. After that, the applicant and then staff can make a rebuttal to the public comment. The commissioners can ask questions of the applicant and staff, and then we will enter into deliberations where we will do our best to make our best informed decisions. Thank you for listening, and with that in mind, let's go to the consent agenda. Do any of my colleagues wish to pull an item from the consent agenda? Seeing none. Does anyone in the audience wish to pull an item from the consent agenda? Remember, this is your one opportunity to speak on that item. So if you wish to say anything about that item, please raise your hand and then come forward to the podium. Let us know your name and which item you would like for us to pull from the consent. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to pull an item? Is there anyone online that wishes to pull an item?
If any member of the public online wishes to remove one of the items from the consent agenda, please use the raise your hand function or *9 now. We have no hands raised.
Thank you. So with that, let's move to the consent agenda.
I move to approve the items on the consent agenda.
Second.
Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Eggleston,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
Duffy,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Cholet.
Yes. Okay, we will now move on to the public hearing discussion item. The first and only item is the WH Property Holdings LLC special review, file number 24-zone 368. Does staff have a presentation for us?
I do. Good evening. I am Michael Whitley, Senior Planner with the Larimer County Planning Division. And this is the WH Property Holdings LLC Special Review. The request is special review approval for a mining operation in the O Open Zoning District. The proposal includes the use of a portable processing facility for product crushing and screening and the possible use of a portable asphalt batch plant. The applicant is John Warren with Cornell Resources LLC, and the property owner is William Helgenberg of WH Properties Holdings LLC. So the subject property is a 90.87 acre parcel located at 12244 North County Road 5J, Wellington. That is west of I-25, approximately 1/2 mile north of the intersection of I-25 and County Road 70, also known as Al Canyon Road, and the property is zoned O Open. A little additional piece of information. So the Board of County Commissioners recently approved the Wellington Growth Management Area that will become effective in the next few months. It was approved by the Board of County Commissioners at a hearing on Monday. This property is located just north of the Wellington Growth Management Area, but is not within the Wellington Growth Management Area. And I have a slide showing the property highlighted in yellow here with the growth management area, highlighted in yellow with the growth management area in red. And then a wider context shows it with the context of the entire growth management area. So, the property contains a detached single-unit dwelling and is the site of a former shooting range. Surrounding properties contain detached single-family dwellings and agricultural production. And my staff report failed to note that there is actually a mining operation east of I-25 on a property that's about 50 acres in size, and that property has been operating since about 2002 as a mine. So, as I mentioned, the applicant proposes a mining operation with on-site processing. Mining operations are allowed in the open zoning district with special review approval, and on-site processing of mined materials is considered accessory to the mining activity and may be reviewed simultaneously with the mining operation, the mining special review operation. So according to the applicant's project description, mining would occur on approximately 56.4 acres of the 90.87 acre parcel, and the site would be reclaimed in approximately 20 years. And I wanted to mention along those lines with the reclamation within about approximately 20 years. So it comes up periodically with mines about, kind of the nature of their approval and whether or not they are temporary or interim or what have you. So in the land use code, mines are in a couple of different places noted as interim uses. Interim meaning they're not an ultimate land use of a property. So ultimately, this property will be mined and reclaimed and returned to agricultural land. So with a lot of special reviews that the Planning Commission typically sees, it's for a use that is in perpetuity. So I know that every once in a while you hear special reviews, for example, an enclosed storage facility or for an event center. Those uses are intended to be established and continue in perpetuity, and you kind of expect them to kind of be there for a very long time. So 20 years is kind of a long time, but it is finite, and ultimately, again, after the mining activity is done, the property will be returned to agricultural production. So, the permit area where these operations will be located is primarily on the south end of the property. So I've got a couple of exhibits that show the property with the southern end first. So this is the southern end of that property, where it shows the location of portable processing facilities, portable asphalt plants. Further north, there is an alternative location for the portable processing facility, but then the property goes on further from there. So the processing and plant operations will be concentrated on the southern end of the property. So so the remainder of the property would be mined in one phase, starting on the northern end of the property, moving south. And as the pit reaches its maximum depth, the mining side slopes would be completed, and then the property would be reclaimed as mining operations finish on one portion of the property. So approximately 5 to 10 acres of the property would be mined at any one point, and then as the mining operation continues further south, the previously mined operation would be reclaimed. With regards to reclamation, I again have a site plan that shows the property kind of split with the southern end of the property on the left and the northern end of the property on the right, and it shows the approximate slopes of the land, again, to be returned to agricultural production. Operating hours are proposed to be Monday through Saturday between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., with the possibility of emergency work for the asphalt plant to occur for emergencies, major arterial or state highway projects, And if there was processing activity outside of that Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., the operator would notify Larimer County of that deviation from the hours of operation. So if the proposed special review is approved, a site plan review process will be required to finalize site development details. So there are a lot of criteria associated with a special review. The special review criteria can be found on pages 548 through 554. And then in addition to the special review criteria, there is also general review criteria. And the general review criteria can be found starting on page 554. So rather than go through a great level of detail, I'm going to hit some high spots, and then the applicant will kind of touch on some major points about his operation, and then we'd be happy to answer questions. We do have people from the engineering department or staff from the engineering department, the environmental planner, and representatives from the health department to answer questions also. So with regard to wastewater, I know that that has come up as an issue. Wastewater disposal will be provided by a temporary septic system located near the scale house, which is on the southern end of the property. There is a current water tap on the property that serves the existing home, and the septic system will be served either from a service line from the existing tap that services the home or from a cistern. So there's also proposed to be a 20,000 gallon cistern on the property that would be filled from a well that is owned by the operator near Carr, Colorado, so off-site. So there would not be a new well for the property. There would not be a new water service, but water service would either be obtained from the existing water tap or from a well that is owned by the operator. With regard to environmental impacts, so we did send a referral to Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and they did indicate that the entire proposed project area is in a mapped mule deer severe winter range. The entire project area is in a mule deer severe severe winter range, and the western side of the property is in a pronghorn winter concentration area. Their primary recommendation was that no activities occur on the property between December 1st and April 30th of any given year because it adds stress to habitat. So the Colorado Parks and Wildlife comments did note that if the applicant can't avoid operating from December 1st to April 30th, they do recommend that the initial construction activity not occur during that period so that animals can avoid the area or become accustomed to the disturbance before winter. And we do have a proposed condition of approval that reads that the initial mining activity and/or initial site disturbance work in support of the mining activity on the property shall not occur between December 1st and April 30th. As I mentioned, the applicant has some details with regards to their operation that they will cover during their presentation, so I'll let them do that. But that's kind of a big picture overview of the operation. So we do have a findings that can be found on page 556 of the staff report. The Development Services team does find that the WH Property Holdings LLC Special Review, File 24 Zone 3688, complies with the special review criteria found in Section 642D of the Land Use Code, and it also complies with the general review criteria found in Section 638D of the Land Use Code. We have a recommendation. The Development Services team does recommend that the Planning Commission recommend to the Board of County Commissioners approval of the WH Holdings LLC Special Review, File 24 Zone 3688, subject to 18 conditions found on pages 557 through 558 of the Planning Commission packet. And I will note that many of those conditions are specifically crafted for this operation. So there are conditions with regards to access, parking, etc. Also, several conditions related to noise mitigation, and noise monitoring. We'd be happy to answer questions about those, but just to let you know that many of those conditions were in specific consideration of the proposed impacts and this site-specific development. And we do have a suggested motion, which I will reserve for the end of the presentation or the end of the hearing. So that's a very brief overview of the application. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do you think that it would be helpful to hear the applicant's presentation first or ask questions first?
So I do think that some of the answers that you may have will be found in the applicant's presentation, so it would probably be helpful to hear from them, and then you can ask questions that may be answered by staff, may be answered by the applicant.
Okay, I think we'll go that route since this is a kind of a unique situation. So does the applicant have a presentation?
Yes, we do.
Sir, we typically allow 10 minutes. Do you need more than that?
Maybe a little bit.
Okay.
I'll try to get through this quickly
You bet.
as possible, and I apologize up front if I'm redundant with
That's
anything
okay.
that Mr. Whitley went through.
Okay. Well, if you would just
Okay.
state your name and then
Sure.
off you go.
So my name is Bill Schenderline. I'm with Bluer Solutions LLC, and we have been assisting Connell Resources Inc. with the permitting and engineering for the 5J Pit site. Also here tonight is John Warren and Kevin Anderson from Connell Resources. They'll be available to answer any questions that you might have regarding the details of the process. Tony Connell could not be here tonight. For those of you who are not familiar, Connell Resources is primarily an infrastructure construction company that operates in northern Colorado, has been operating for almost 80 years. Since about 1946, when the company started, the company has been family and employee owned and located here in Larimer County. Their services include kind of heavy civil earthwork, propane or pipeline and utility work, and asphalt paving. Their expertise has been recognized by homeowners and developers and local transportation and even state transportation departments. So even though they're primarily a construction company, Connell Resources does own several sand and gravel mining operations. These operations are primarily to provide material for their own services. But along with that, the materials also provide important materials for local development, homeowners, and again, those transportation companies from local and state governments. Connell Resources currently maintains three pits, maintains and operates three pits, three operations in Weld County, two operations in Larimer County. Now, through the years, they've permitted and operated and maintained 24 different sites. Of those, 19 have been reclaimed and released and returned to previous land uses. That's 79%, if my math is right. So, just like these other pits, the 5J pit site is a temporary and interim use. And in the end, when the mining and processing is complete, the land will be returned to the current general agricultural use. So the two sites that Connell Resources owns in Larimer County for mining and processing operations are actually currently in final reclamation process. So a big purpose of the 5J pit site is to continue the existing supply of construction materials for northern Colorado. As far as the location goes, I think Mr. Whitley kind of covered that. We're about 3 miles north of Wellington, just north of the Owl Canyon exit, on the west side of the interstate, kind of at the northern end of County Road 5J. I want to talk for just a second because besides this special review permit, there's other permits and regulations that this particular site is going to have to follow or the permits to obtain. Several of those are with the state of Colorado. Probably the principal one is with the Division of Reclamation, Mining, and Safety, which is a division within the Department of Natural Resources in the state of Colorado. They manage really all of the mining in the state. So a permit application was submitted to them last year. It was approved in October of 2024. And with that permit, there's attached a $186,000 reclamation bond, which has been posted by the applicant, by Connell Resources. There's additional permits through the state for water quality and air quality with the Water Quality Control Division and the Air Pollution Control Division. And then also with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, it's not really a permit, it's more of a regulation, but they are required to maintain a spill prevention control and countermeasures plan for the handling and storage of any petroleum products that they may have on site. Next. Okay, I want to talk for a second, and I know this slide is pretty illegible for the details, but the overall concept is more applicable to what I'm going to talk about. So when looking for a site to set up this type of an operation, there's a lot of reasons why this particular parcel is very compatible with what we're trying to do. Above all else, it has a very viable sand and gravel deposit to mine. But on top of that, the mining permit area is going to be located within one parcel, which means one property owner, which increases the efficiency of the mining operation. It's one property owner to work with. It decreases the amount of setbacks from property lines, setbacks from buildings, and other structures, things like that. Also, you can kind of tell it's in a very rural type area. There's very few residences around. I think that's kind of illustrated by, and I can't remember if Mr. Willie had mentioned it, but for the notices sent out by the county for the project, there were no responses that came back in a negative light for the project. In terms of sort of the surrounding properties, Mr. Willie did mention the, what's it called? The Glacier Rock Pit, which you can just barely see in that picture up in the very right-hand corner there, which is on the other side of the interstate, but adjacent to this property. Another thing that makes this property compatible with the operation is that there's already existing disturbances out there. There's the ranch activities that are going on the property. And then there's also, you have I-25 immediately adjacent to the mining permit on the east, and then Burlington Northern Railroad to the west. So these are two large disturbances in addition to the ranching operations that create existing disturbances. So I'm going to switch to kind of a topographic map now, still showing the property location. Another thing about this site topographically is if you look at that, it's a relatively flat piece of ground, but it's also on a bluff or a ridge relative to the property to the west. And being up on that elevation, that higher elevation, makes this property pretty dry. I think I had already mentioned relatively flat up there. But this is, and it's, if you have a little difficulty reading topographic map, I have some pictures. Notice where the pictures were on there. But anyway, this is kind of on the south end of the site near the entrance, looking to the west. And the mine area is to the right of this picture. So you can see it's going up onto a ridge or a bluff there. The next picture is from the northwest part of the site, and now the mining area is to the left, and you can see how it goes up onto that bluff up there, away from sort of this valley area. On the very right, you see the big berm that was created for the Burlington Northern Railroad that goes through. So going back or forward to, that's right. So what I've done here is I've taken kind of that same map and I've shaded in the valley areas below where the ground level is actually 30 to over 50 feet below where the mine site is going to occur. So again, kind of what this illustrates is down in that valley below, if you look at it, even on an aerial photograph, it has access to surface water ditches, to groundwater, things that are available for irrigation. 50 feet higher, 30 feet higher up on the bluff, those waters do not exist. So you wouldn't expect to find a lot of maybe wetlands, waters of the US type of thing, or even significant habitat that water might create. Sure enough, what we did before we started,
You can
I'm at
keep
10
going.
minutes.
You're good.
Okay. Before we started any permitting, we did an environmental assessment of the property with a qualified ecologist. And we were looking, those are exactly the things we were looking for: waters of the US, wetlands, floodplains, creeks, any significant wildlife habitat for mammals, reptiles, birds, fish, anything that we might find. And really, there was nothing to note within the mine permit area up on the bluff. And I think this has to do with kind of, again, you're up away from the groundwater and the surface waters, and it's kind of a dry site. In addition to that, for when they went up and did test pits to verify the aggregate resource, that material is very loose. It's unconsolidated, so no blasting. And as far down as they dug, 25 or more feet, they never hit groundwater. So the groundwater is below. It's, as seen in the valley below, 30, 50 vertical feet below. So a nice thing about that for the mining is if you aren't going to hit groundwater, you don't have to dewater, which is kind of an inefficiency. It's also very expensive. So that's one of the things make this very compatible for this type of process. Okay. I'll just talk just for a second about the conditions of approval. So some of those conditions are about landscape berms for visual and noise mitigation. I just wanted to mention that as part of the mining process, the first thing you do is you strip all the topsoil and overburden or dirt so that you can have access to the sand and gravel underneath. That topsoil and overburden is stored in stockpiles or berms because then we use it in reclamation. So that is part of the process. So that is not an issue with the applicant. As a matter of fact, the berms are already shown, I think as Mr. Whitley had shown on his mining plan, they're already part of the mining plan. One of the other things for the conditions of approval, there are a lot of things in there about site plan review. And a lot of the comments came from the engineering department or the health department. And I just want to mention that back in June of this year, Connell Resources took it upon themselves to initiate, to have meetings with the engineering department and with the health department to go through some of those details about what's going to be required in the site plan review. And I'll put my glasses on, excuse me. A lot of the details, like internal road specifications, drainage and erosion control, potable and non-potable water supplies, plumbing for sanitation, additional sound monitoring, County Road 5J and Owl Canyon Road intersection improvements, and a lot more. We're in those discussions. And I mean, so those discussions have begun, and so far, there's nothing in there that can't be solved at this point in time. One of the other ones that I want to mention in terms of the conditions of approval is the Colorado Parks and Wildlife comments regarding the high priority habitat. So this is from a CPW map, and this shows in gray where those habitats are. And you can see I've sort of illustrated, and this only shows northern Colorado, but you can kind of see I also have a little mark there where our site is. And it's right at the edge of these habitats that are sort of in that particular area. If you want to go to the next one, Michael, that's for antelope, that's for the mule deer, the sphere winter range. One of the interesting things about this map is if you look at an aerial and you just sort of use this map and kind of look at maybe some of the irrigation circles that are down in the lower parts of the land, that gray area right in there almost corresponds with those lower areas. So again, we're, even CPW said we're sort of right on the edge, and this really illustrates that. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. And the operator, because of their operation, typically slows down or even stops completely during the winter months. So this particular condition of approval isn't really going to be an issue for them, especially when it comes to opening up kind of new things. So anyway, just kind of wanted to mention that. A little bit of just a really brief mining summary. Already went into how the topsoil and overburden's removed, it's stockpiled to access the gravel. The sand and gravel is then excavated, typically with an excavator. Lots of times it's below grade when that is done. And then it's processed with crushers and screens to size and sort the rock and the sand. And then depending on the project needs or the market, some of that may be used to create asphalt with the asphalt plant. There have been some meetings that we've had. Well, it's been brought up at different meetings that we've had. It's been asked if the 5J pit will be like the Connell Resources pit that's near Timnath. The answer to that is mostly no. Obviously, there's going to be some similarities. Gravel will be mined. There will be some processing. But the asphalt plant at Timnath is not portable and was not intended to be moved from site to site. At the 5J pit, the asphalt plant and gravel processing equipment are completely portable and will be moved to and from the site depending on the market and specific project needs. Relative to the Timnath site, the 5J operation will be more intermittent. The product stockpiles are more likely to be smaller and more transient, come and go. And the portable asphalt batch plant is much more compact. And one of the big things about that is the silos aren't attached, doesn't have attached silos. So there shouldn't be any silos on this site. Okay. And finally, kind of talking a little bit more about the reclamation. So when reclamation starts in a certain area, that's where landscape berms are taken out because that material is used in reclamation. It's used for backfill. The topsoil is used to cover the final grading in the area and used as a growth median so that native grasses can be planted and seeded. And that's really, there's no other landscaping that's proposed besides the native grasses. Once the site is seeded and it kind of comes into some best management practices to try to establish that grass growth. One of them has to do with seeding during a particular time of year. So you want to take advantage of the spring moisture. Other than the spring moisture, irrigation for the native grass isn't really suggested for best management practices because extra water just encourages weed and non-native grass growth. So want to depend on kind of the native moisture that's out there. Additionally, for best management practices, the weeds are controlled mainly by mowing. Herbicides are used sort of as a last resort. Don't necessarily want to do that. So, but again, that's all to kind of help control erosion and get that grass growth established. And I think that's it. So we're probably ready for questions. The next one, I think, is just questions. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. Okay,
welcome.
so we're going to open it up for commissioners to ask questions of staff. If you and your colleagues are available for questions that might be appropriate to you, I think that'll work out well.
Okay, should I stay here?
Or like maybe just in the front row. That way, when we
Okay.
need you, we can call you up. All right, friends. Any commissioners have a question? Mr. Weiss? Commissioner Weiss, I apologize.
A few questions. Let me first ask staff. Condition 11, I found confusing. Can you explain as to what condition 11 requires of the applicant?
Oh, yes, and I can give you my answer, but actually, I think I will defer to Leah Schneider with the Department of Health and Environment. It was her condition that she wrote, and she actually provided an explanation previously, in writing, about that condition, that I think she can be much more articulate about it than I can.
I'm sorry, I don't have the packet open. Which condition is it? Is it the noise one?
It has to do with noise, yes.
Is this the post mining? Okay, or the,
Yes.
I'm sorry, mining after 30 days after operation. Okay, hold on. Or wait, sorry. Okay. So the process for this, we have, and I'm not sure how much we've been through gravel mines with this commission for noise or for noise levels. So the initial topsoil removal and a lot of the grading and everything will be counted as temporary construction work. So that is allowed to fall within that 75 to 80 decibels. And then as they start going into the actual mining and extraction, that's where we start implementing the residential levels, just because that's where you're going in and you're basically extracting usable material that'll be sold. So we consider that a long-term extraction, and we're trying to keep them at 55. So as they're going through the initial grading and construction, they'll build their stockpiles / berms around the perimeter, and then once that's completed, we'll have a noise study on the outside of those berms as well as the inside while they're actively starting to subgrade for the mining. And then when we bring the processing equipment on site, which will actually start processing the aggregate that's mined on site, we'll do additional noise readings because that equipment will be above grade or at grade, I should say. And that equipment will add additional noise. So we're just trying to evaluate that each activity on site is still not going to be a disturbance for any of the residential or not increase the existing impacts to an area like the highway and some other activities out in that area. But it is Connell's responsibility to stay below 55 as part of the mining operations, even if surrounding noises can be louder.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully the applicant understands that and that's agreeable with them. So I do have a couple. Applicant made the statement that there may be on the border or just outside the habitat type issue that was raised, but it is required. So I want to make sure that you're okay with that condition where you, unless it's an emergency, you cease operations during those several months. And I guess ceasing operation is everything or just the mining operation?
So, I'm sorry, can you repeat your question? So, I think, does that have to do with the December 1st to April 31st
Yeah.
condition? So that is for the initial site disturbance. So as long as their initial site disturbance is outside of that window and, kind of the activity is established, the idea is that that gives wildlife the opportunity to adjust to that activity prior to what is considered to be a critical time of year for the wildlife so that they can avoid it during the winter months. So as long as they start operations outside of that window, they will be okay. And it's not a perpetual requirement that they cease operations during those winter months. Now, the Colorado Parks and Wildlife did say that that is their ideal preferred scenario. They find the alternative acceptable with the idea, again, that once there's disturbance, wildlife recognizes that and that they adjust accordingly. And as the applicant mentioned, this is adjacent to, it is sandwiched between a railroad and the interstate, and there is a mine immediately to the east of this property. And so I was kind of struck. I drove this area not that long ago. I was kind of struck about how vast, kind of unincorporated Larimer County actually is, and how there are large stretches of undeveloped and uninterrupted land with pockets of activity. And so this will be a pocket of activity that once wildlife knows it's there, they adjust accordingly.
Okay, all right. My misunderstanding, but thanks for clarification. I know that the applicant in the paperwork is going to have to do a fugitive dust study, and there's an abatement. The concern I have from a safety perspective is it's right adjacent to I-25. And, there's a possibility during mining operations or in processing, you're going to get a lot of fugitive dust blowing across the highway. And I didn't see any response in the CDOT on that issue. Maybe I missed it. But that, to me, is an issue. And I don't know, like I said, I know they're going to submit a thing. So I'll just say that I'm concerned, especially since it's going to be higher, at least initially, that you could have, it's conceivable. We had a windy day, Highway Patrol shuts down the road because nobody can see with all the dust blowing across the road. So that is a concern for me. And then real quickly, the applicant can answer these, I think. Of the mining area that you plan to do over the so-called 20 years, give or take, do you have some idea of, for the first 5 years, if you will, how much of that mine area is going to be actually mined? And then when you're done, then you move to the next. So if you have, say, 40 acres, you're going to divide it up into 5-acre parcels, if you will, and mine them going southward, or what? I'd just be curious for that. And then you're removing a lot of stuff. So I guess the question is, are you going to import soil when you reclaim it, since you seem to be taking out an awful lot, and I'm not sure that what you set aside is going to be adequate? That's all.
I will let the applicant primarily address those concerns. However, I would like to point out that condition 9 is that a 20,000 gallon storage water tank is mandatory for on-site water storage for dust and fire suppression, primarily dust suppression.
No, I saw that. I'm not convinced yet that that's adequate, but that's what the fugitive study will tell us.
Certainly.
My name is John Warren. I'm the president of Connell Resources. To clarify, and again, jump in if I'm missing any of these. Now, the 20 years is really the life of the mine. It may go quicker than that. We would hope that it does. But again, it's all based off of market conditions, economic conditions, and the need for the material. We don't see it going longer than that, but this is not a very large source in all relative terms. So it's difficult to say how long each 5-acre parcel will take. To your dust comment, our intent, though, is to get, we'll mine out an area and actually put the processing and stockpiles on the floor of the pit as quickly as possible. That alleviates some of that wind issue. Because obviously we'll be 20 to 28 foot below, along with berms above, which are windbreaks. So we live through this all the time. We do know how to manage that, and it is obviously our obligation to do so. What else am I missing? Oh, bringing material in. No, at the end of the day, this parcel has about 8 foot of overburden and then about 20 to 25 foot of aggregate. That 8 foot of overburden will be stored and then brought back over the top of the pit floor, and that's what'll be the reclaiming. That'll be the new surface of it. So it will be lower. It'll be, if you go out and actually spend time on the property, there's that strange little kind of 90-degree notch out. It sure looks to me like that Burlington Northern when they built the railroad grade. That's what they use to mine that area out and to as some of their imported fill. Alls we're doing is dropping it down to the same elevation in essence that is to the west of the property. So it does, the contours do conform and kind of will tie in with the existing western piece of the property. Does that answer all the questions? Did I catch that? Okay.
Ms. King?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. When you did the environmental study, was there any studies done to what might happen when the sorry, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know how to say this, but hopefully it'll make sense. When all of the water collecting dirt that you're taking is no longer collecting water and it just goes straight into the new valley, is there any like flood risk, or has that been something that was looked at?
I mean, I might defer to staff or to Bill, but it really is, it's a dry pit. We didn't encounter any perched water anywhere along the property. Again, that's part of this of, there really is no groundwater. We shouldn't have any effect whatsoever on a floodplain or floodway, or the surface flow obviously already kind of flows to the southwest. That's the natural flow, and we'll just continue to keep that as is.
So there's no like, I'm asking this because I don't know. There's no like sponge effect from
No.
the water, the material that you're taking out, no, or storage effect, I guess.
So, Ms. King, if I understand correctly, and that comment could be more kind of geared towards stormwater and stormwater runoff. So there was a drainage and erosion control report that was done, and typically with these sand and gravel mines, as they do mine down and they create kind of that pit floor, even in this particular case where, as John mentioned, it's going to daylight to the west, that pit floor creates sort of a more level or even bold sort of surface to collect the stormwater that's kind of coming down on the site, to allow it a little bit of detention to let that sediment fall before the rest of the water runs off. And then for this particular case, because we are concerned that the historic drainage does go through a fairly narrow little piece between the railroad and the raised property. We are planning on creating a kind of a secondary treatment for that. And not a treatment in terms of addition of chemicals or whatever, but just another settling pond to make sure that the water leaving the permit area is as clear as possible. Is that a little more? Okay.
I just have a follow-up question on on those overburden piles. So how are those stabilized? Because that's pretty loose dirt when you guys are reforming those berms, or how do those kind of?
It gets tracked in.
It gets tracked in.
Yep.
So
Surface tracked and again, it kind of looks like a corduroy pattern, and generally that topsoil will start to grow very quickly because it still possesses the organic material. But if we need to, and they're going to be there for some time, we'll temporary seed those as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Just to add to that, it's also the seed mix that is used for that is different than the final reclamation seed mix.
Something that's faster growing, or
exactly. Yes, it's still native species, but the ones that are the quick growing ones to help stabilize that.
Okay. And then this could be a question for staff, but you guys probably know too. But what are the requirements for kind of mitigating road impacts? I guess there's probably a lot of heavy truck traffic, and I know that mentions a transportation study, and there's some paving that will take place. But what about kind of just the wear and tear on some of the roads? You guys have to put that back at the completion of the project? Is that part of the reclamation, or?
Part of our agreement on the site plan review with the engineering department is to do an impact study of just County Road 5J, since that's really where our primary impacts will be. So that will be studying what the condition of the pavement is now making sure that we don't adversely affect that through the life of it, and when we're responsible for that. The only road improvements will be just the turn movement at 5J in Owl Canyon. It's it's about a 70-degree angle. It's a strange angle. The county already owns all the right-of-way to allow for those improvements to happen, but we'll be responsible for designing that and building that to allow safe turn movements onto 5J. The rest of, we don't have it seems like it's a substantial traffic impact, but from relative terms of traffic counts, we're fairly minor. We increase, if don't quote me exactly, but from our traffic study, I think we're increasing traffic about 3% at the intersection of 5J and Owl Canyon, at our maximum times of the day. So it's fairly minor in the grand scheme of things. But we are responsible for working with the county on 5J and doing the improvements at Owl Canyon and 5J.
Okay. And if you guys end up filling the 20,000 gallon storage tank, is that, just out of curiosity, what does that traffic look like?
It's truck traffic as well. It's just 7,000 gallon tanks. That
7,000 gallons.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Sheldon, do you want to add to that? Did I miss something?
Sheldon.
John did a great job of recapping the conversations we've had up till this point, so I won't add too much to it. The only thing that I was going to add, because you mentioned truck traffic specifically, is that the traffic impact study does use passenger car equivalents for the trucks, so it's accounting for that additional impact of the heavier trucks in the traffic impact study. But everything else was well said.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Mr. Sheldon, really quick follow up on that. Did in the traffic impact study, did it take into account the other impacts to Owl Canyon from the highway going west for things such as the landfill and potentially a Glade Reservoir and things of that nature that are also going on?
No, it just uses the current traffic counts at the site, and it does, I guess, evaluate those in like projected traffic, but not specific projects that are on the horizon.
Thank you.
Just to kind of follow up on that, at this site, are you planning on bringing any aggregate in? I know that you guys do recycling activities and things like that at some of your other facilities. Are you thinking of potentially using that site to bring aggregate in from other locations? And Mr. Sheldon, is that accounted for in the TIS application or the study?
That is accounted for. There is, we can't bring material in per the, and correct me if I'm get this right, Michael, but we can't bring additional material in to be processed. Now there is, obviously, if we're making asphalt, we're bringing in asphalt cement. There's mineral filler, which is lime. Asphalt also requires a clean sand or a wash sand. So some of those very kind of specialty aggregates will be brought in, but we can't bring in material to be processed. So we can't bring, at this point in time, can't bring in material to be recycled. It'll all have to be ready to go into the mixing of the asphalt plant. Does that make sense?
And I would add that condition 4 addresses that reads, on-site processing is accessory to the mining operation. There shall be no processing of off-site materials. So processing is allowed as accessory to a mining operation through a special review process. But if off-site materials were brought onto the property, that would be considered to be a second primary operation on the property. There'd be mining, and then there would be primary processing, which would be processing of other materials other than those that are mined on the property. That is actually not allowed in the open zoning district. There are zoning districts that do allow that, but they are industrial or airport, and in those zoning districts, it requires a special review approval. So we do have a specific condition regarding off-site processing that prohibits off-site processing.
Okay, so to put it in simple terms, if you guys have another Hughes Stadium recycling project and you process some of that material there, Mr. Whitley, are they allowed to bring it to this facility and mix it in the process there?
Well, material process does need to be mined on site. So if it is material that is kind of reused to be processed, that needs to come from the site itself.
Okay.
Quick follow up on that. So throughout the executive summary and the applicant's summary and a lot of the different findings, it refers to recycling. So are you saying that condition 4 says there is no opportunity for recycling on this site?
Well, what condition 4 says is that if there is material processed, it has to come from this site. So, and actually I had a conversation with the Department of Health and Environment representative about that. So that was my oversight with regards to kind of the reference to recycling. There are several references to recycling in the project description. I did not connect that, kind of that implies that material will be processed on, kind of off-site material will be brought onto the property. That's where the condition of approval came in, and I'll let the applicant, kind of reiterate, but they are okay with that condition as proposed. There are other properties where they can do that as a part of a primary operation, but the condition of approval would prohibit that.
Okay. Because that's one of the things that you guys do a lot of, right? Is asphalt recycling.
We do, and we had intended that to be part of this operation until this actually came up at the 11th hour. It doesn't really affect the gravel mining or actually the asphalt processing when we bring an asphalt plant on. So we're okay with not recycling there. We think it's a great use for it. Obviously, it's going to defer things away from the new landfill and some of those things, but as the land use code goes or the zoning code goes, we understand that. And I think we had all missed that early on or through the last 17 months of this process. But it doesn't really change our primary objective, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
So,
No, you're good. Go ahead.
same point. So, per the land use code in the O zone, they're not allowed to do that.
Correct.
Okay.
So a primary asphalt or concrete batch plant is considered to be a heavy industrial use, which requires special review approval in 3 different zoning districts: IL, IH, or AP, so industrial high, industrial low, or airport, with special review approval, but not allowed in other zoning districts.
Okay. The reason why I asked that is because if we were to be able to lift that condition of approval, they still would not be able to use this for primary purpose of recycling, correct?
Correct. The property would have to be rezoned, and then the special review would have to be modified to specifically contemplate the processing of off-site materials.
Is there any particular reason why we didn't ask for a rezone on this?
We weren't aware of that until 48 hours ago, to be perfectly honest, and to keep this moving forward. It may be something we come back to in the future. But again, our primary use is as a sand and gravel source. The recycling would be kind of an ancillary or secondary piece of that. And so at this point in time, we wanted to move the process forward, and so agreed that would be, again, it's not a primary use of what we had planned on, so that's okay again. I think it's a good use for it, but my opinion doesn't really matter.
I completely understand. Mr. Eggleston, do you have any questions? No? Anybody else have any more questions for anyone? Okay, I have a few. I know that shocked you. It's nice to see you again, by the way.
Good to see you as well.
So can you explain to me the portable asphalt? Because, of course, I'm just thinking of the giant stack, right? So can you explain to me what that looks like, how that works?
Yeah, is our presentation still up?
I can bring it up, yes.
That one right there. Nope, next one up, please, Michael, if you don't mind. I think at 14. So in the lower left-hand corner is a picture of the exact portable asphalt plant, right? So if you're accustomed to seeing our plant in Timnath, 3 large silos that are approximately 70 feet tall. This does not have any silos. It is 12 truckloads that comes in, and there's no foundations. It is a kind of, I'm aging myself here, but an erector set of an asphalt plant. All the same technologies of a larger asphalt plant, but just mobile. So from an environmental standpoint, no different from all of that process of making the asphalt, but just much more compact. We can only make one type of asphalt at a time. where with silos we can make multiple 3 or 4 different asphalt types at a time, which is again helps when you have multiple jobs going. That's why this is primarily in the narrative. It is intended to be a project by project use, so it's kind of a single use. So if you think we did the Owl Canyon, the last phase of Owl Canyon, it would have been a perfect use for this piece of property. Bringing a portable batch plant in close to the project site obviously reduces trucking impacts, length of hauls. Asphalt's is a perishable product. Once it gets cold, it's useless. So the closer we are to a project is what we want. So the intent here is that we would bring this in. We can set it up in under 2 weeks. For a Larimer County overlay that's in the northwest section of Larimer County, Livermore, Red Feather Lakes, the next sections of Owl Canyon, those type of projects where it's going to be really a single use application. You're not going to be selling to outside vendors with this type of application. So again, if you can look at that picture, you can kind of see much smaller. Again, no silos. It's where the asphalt actually comes into the truck is called an SEB. It's a self-erecting batcher. It holds about 50, 60 tons, where our silos hold 250 each. So much more compact and smaller. Does that help?
Yeah, so I have a couple quick questions.
Sure.
So I assume the process is the same. You still have to heat the aggregate.
Absolutely.
The asphalt comes in at that hold temp, all of those things, yes?
Correct.
Okay, and then, so with it being temporary, or portable, sorry, wrong word, with it being portable, does that then eliminate the need for, like, the truck wash, things that you would typically see?
Yeah, we will have no trucks on the stage at this site. They'll all come from out of sight or from a different site. I think one of the questions that came through earlier today was, is this replacing our Timnath operation? It is not. It has really nothing to do with that. It's an ancillary, a complete separate use. We're in the middle of building a new asphalt plant in Weld County, which will be our primary asphalt plant, which really replaces that Timnath facility. The Timnath asphalt plant you'll start to see come down here by the end of December, and really that whole area starts to get reclaimed. It'll take a couple of years to do the final reclamation of that, but it'll look very different here within the next 60 days. So.
Okay, I think that's all, the only questions I have for you. I have a couple for staff. And so can you talk to me about, is there a clear, I know you kind of touched on this, but is there a clear definition in our land use code around the difference between a temporary use versus one in perpetuity, right? So 20 years, I'm sure, in Mr. Warren's business is temporary. In the minds of some people, that's a generation, it's a couple decades. Is that clearly defined in our land use code, or is it more looking at it in a more general way?
Well, we do have a definition of temporary in the land use code, but it is much more temporary than what we're contemplating here. So the land use code defines temporary as existing for a fixed or limited time period, but not to exceed 30 days in any 12-month period unless otherwise specified by this land use code. So temporary is, 30 days or less. The code does use interim a few times. I think it's 5 times periodically. The code does not define interim, but it does specify certain standards for interim uses, and mining is specifically mentioned in 2 or 3 of those 5 references. So, there's basically different standards for water service, sewer service, for interim uses. Again, interim being not the long-term planned use for the property in a kind of longer than 20-year period contemplation. So interim is something that happens, it's discrete, it is, it's done, it's concluded, and then there's a different use at the end of that operation. So mining is considered to be an interim use. Interim is not defined, but you don't expect a mine to operate for 100 years or 200 years or what have you. It ultimately is replaced by something else. In this case, agricultural production, just returned to agricultural land.
Okay, and in this application, now that we've settled the recycling piece, there's the asphalt batching process. as a secondary use. It seems iffy, but it seems like that's going to be a natural thing. If the new plant is all the way in Weld County, that makes sense. As in the review criteria, is any of that specific to that secondary use?
The review criteria. So
So the special review criteria for mining, right? It fits into certain definitions, categories. It's one of those things that can be fit into the rural farm ranch land kind of thing from the comprehensive plan. My question is, as we're looking through all of these and we're considering all of these different aspects for approval and conditions of approval, the secondary use of the asphalt batching and the specific things that come with that, right?
Yeah.
The heating process, then there's the whole air quality thing, different things like that. Is that considered when you're going through this?
yes,
Okay.
yes, we look at those impacts, and the special review criteria, I have them on the screen. So they look at the impacts of the proposed use, whether or not it is interim, like mining, or a long-term use, like enclosed storage or the event center that I mentioned. So what are the impacts on existing and future development? Are there impacts with the environment, access, traffic, et cetera? Either, kind of short-term or long-term or medium-term. What do the referral agencies say with regards to things like water service, sewer service, fire protection, access, transportation? That is all contemplated and evaluated as a part of this special review. And the use of the processing, again, is a secondary use to the mine, meaning that when the mine goes away, these other uses go away. That is all evaluated as a part of the review. And that's why we have in this particular case, 18 conditions of approval, whereas 7 to 10 are more typical for a special review. With mines, there are specific considerations with regards to traffic and noise that are built into the conditions of approval, with the idea of mitigating the impacts while the use is operating, recognizing that long-term the use will go away.
Okay, and then I think maybe the final question is you kind of goes into a couple things, but I think I can sum it up in one way. So you indicated that the opportunity for recycling as a secondary use, because the primary use as mining isn't allowed because it would be considered a primary use, but the opportunity to do asphalt batching can be secondary. But both of those are industrial uses, right? The asphalt batching and the recycling. So I'm kind of trying to understand the distinction of why allow one but not the other.
So the distinction is the aggregate that is being processed from, things that are, material that's mined on site, which is secondary to the mining operation, or are materials being brought in to be processed? And that makes it, rather than accessory, it makes it a primary use because it's not, at that point, completely accessory to the mine because it's relying on off-site product, if that makes any sense. So if you're processing what is actually being mined, that is accessory to the mining operation. If you're bringing in product, that has different impacts. It also has different longevity. You can have a asphalt or a batch plant or a concrete plant that brings in off-site material, and that could be a perpetual use because it doesn't rely on the material that's on the property. So that's the distinction in the code. Not all jurisdictions have that same distinction, but ours does. And so that's kind of where our code draws the line with regards to what's accessory as opposed to a second primary use.
So even though the asphalt batching as a standalone is considered an industrial use, which isn't permitted in that open zone district, but because it's a secondary use using materials from this, then it being an industrial use no longer matters.
It is specifically contemplated as a part of a mining operation for the duration of the mine, yes.
Okay.
Again, with the understanding that once the mine ceases, that processing ceases.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any more questions? No? Okay,
I'm happy to make a motion. If
we still need public comment.
Oh, sorry.
We haven't even gotten there yet.
Sorry.
I know. I feel like, we did a little out of order today. Okay. So now we will open the public hearing on this item. Commenters are allowed 3 minutes to provide testimony on an item. Is there anyone here in the audience who wishes to speak to this proposal? Please come to the podium, state and spell your name for the record. Anyone? No? Do we have anyone online?
We have no members of the public online.
Okay, well then I will close this portion of the public hearing.
Chair Shirley, may I add something?
Yes.
So until today, we've received no input from surrounding property owners on this application. There have been several points at which notice has been provided. We did today receive through our online portal a comment from an adjacent property owner that actually says verbatim, and this was provided in an addendum earlier today, we, adjacent property owners, own a 38-acre parcel adjacent to the property directly to the west, and we have no objection to the proposed land use.
Thank you. All right, so now we will move into deliberation. Does anyone have anything that they would like to comment on, ponder out loud for all of us to consider?
I'll just say I appreciate the applicant's presentation and just the thoroughness of kind of going through all that with us. I can't recall another kind of gravel pit that we've done, I guess. And also staff's review. I'm supportive of this application and I'm prepared to move forward.
Anyone else have anything they'd like to say? No? I'm going to just take a minute. Mr. Warren, it's truly nice to see you again. Point of clarification, I have in a different entity had Mr. Warren and Connell Resources in front of me. So I think this was a really well thought out application. I think that any concerns that I might have had have been answered, mitigated, and easily addressed. I think I'm glad that there's an opportunity for you to continue to be able to serve Larimer County. In case you don't know, asphalt paving is important. And staff did a great job on all of this. And I very much appreciate the detail and the well thought out conditions of approval. And so I will be supporting this application. And with that, can I get a motion? Mr. Duffy or Mr. Rowe?
Yeah, I'm happy to make the motion. I move that the Planning Commission recommend that the Board of County Commissioners approve the WH Property Holdings LLC Special Review File Number 24-Zone 3688, subject to the conditions as outlined in our packet. Pages 557 through 559.
Second.
Can I get a roll call, please?
Rowe,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
Yes.
Duffy, King,
Yes.
Eggleston,
Yes.
Cholet.
Yes. Okay, and then have to get back to the top, sorry. The agenda. Do we have, I think we're on staff comment or staff updates, comments, reports, anything like that?
Just a couple quick updates. We have canceled the BCC PC work session for December 10th, and you all will be invited to a party in lieu of that. So hopefully that's a little bit better than a work session. We are looking ahead at the 2026 meeting calendar, and traditionally this Planning Commission meeting falls on the same week as spring break for the Poudre School District. So we are looking to actually utilize the work session date for our normal meeting time then, so that we don't have conflicts with potential vacations or staffing issues for that. And kind of keeping that as a tradition moving forward to not have Planning Commission fall on the week of spring break. Other than that, I do not have any additional updates. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, everyone, please have a wonderful Thanksgiving. We are adjourned.